This is an advertisement by BetterHelp. January arrives with a sense of expectation and change. But real change is rarely loud or dramatic.
It's noticing what no longer needs to be there. Thoughts you keep turning over even when they're not helping.
And when you live with those long enough, they can start to feel normal until you pause and see them more clearly. That's where perspective helps. Not fixing yourself, just creating space to understand what's been weighing you down.
Therapy can offer that space, a clearer view of your own patterns and what's worth holding on to. BetterHelp makes starting straightforward. You answer a few questions and they match you with a qualified therapist. If it doesn't feel right, you can switch at any time.
Whether you're into New Year's resolutions or not, working to better yourself is something everyone should do. And you don't even need to bulldoze your life to do it. Simply use BetterHelp.
BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/restishistory. That's betterhelp.com/restishistory. This episode is brought to you by the Financial Times. When it comes to news, it's easy to find out what, who, where, and when. But why is harder. FT journalism goes deeper to help you see the whole story and understand the issues that matter. Why did it happen? Why is it important? Why will it matter?
Listeners to The Rest is History can save over 40% on an annual digital subscription to the Financial Times by visiting ft.com/history. For the why, Financial Times.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Car shopping shouldn't feel like preparing for a marathon of paperwork. That's why Carvana makes buying and financing your car easy. From start to finish, search thousands of vehicles with great prices. All online, all on your time. And when you're ready, your new car shows up right at your door. It doesn't get better than that. Buy your car the easy way. On Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
Hello, welcome back to our French President's Special. We've done de Gaulle, we've done Pompidou, we've done d'Estaing, all of whom were on the right. And now we come to the first left-wing president, François Mitterrand, who came to power in 1981. But, Dominic, he did not begin as a left-winger, did he?
No, he didn't, actually. It's funny, because actually Chirac, who succeeded him, began on the left.
He was communist.
And Mitterrand began on the kind of conservative, nationalist, Catholic right in the 1930s. I mean, Mitterrand and Chirac are both, they are two immensely kind of vulpine, feline, cynical men who make British politicians, I think, look like absolute paragons of principle. So Mitterrand, born in 1916, comes from a Catholic conservative family in the southwest, in the Charente. You were talking before the break about the war. I mean, Mitterrand has quite a dubious war. Because
he does.
He spends the first half basically working as a civil servant in the Vichy regime.
He's a PAW, isn't he? He gets captured.
He is, to be fair
and
to him.
he escapes, in inverted commas, and then before you know it, is working in the Vichy government.
Yeah.
And there's the definite whiff of something that doesn't entirely hang together there.
But then he flees to London in 1943 and is involved with the resistance. So he sort of, I mean, most people I think would say about Mitterrand is he has a foot in both camps. And actually, you know what, we could easily beat up on him about that, but most French men and women had a foot in both camps one way or another. I mean, the lines were not exactly clear. Well, okay, de Gaulle didn't in the 1940s. But apart from de Gaulle and apart from a handful of people, you know, most people are sort of treading a fine line between.
But I just mentioned that because Mitterrand does kind of, you know, he moves to the left, and he kind of makes a name for himself as someone who is the anti-de Gaulle.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So when de Gaulle came in 1958, redoes the constitution, sets up the Fifth Republic, Mitterrand is quite outspoken in opposing him. And Mitterrand is also the person who stands against him during de Gaulle's first kind of national sort of democratic presidential election. Do you see this, that Mitterrand was also accused at this point of faking an assassination attempt against himself?
Yes.
The observatory affair.
Very, very weird. And de Gaulle refuses to make political capital out of it on the grounds that Mitterrand may end up becoming president and therefore to do so would lower the dignity of the presidency.
Sounds to me, I saw that story and I thought that sounds to me like a story that Mitterrand has told himself. De Gaulle wouldn't use that against me because he knew that one day I would be president of France.
Well, no, because that would imply that that Mitterrand was up to no good. So I don't think Mitterrand would have originated it.
But did De Gaulle really say one day that young man will be? I don't know. That sounds very kind of like Alfred the Great going to Rome to me.
Well, absolutely. I mean, but it's it exemplifies de Gaulle's elevated sense of the presidency,
Maybe.
and that ultimately the standing of the presidency is greater than the political rivalry between left and right.
Maybe.
So I think it's a kind of paradigmatic story.
Well, Mitterrand had a sort of Mitterrand comes in 1981, and he's been in French politics forever, and he's very good at, I think, playing the president. You know, I think that sort of Hollywood,
the hauteur.
Yeah, the auteur, he of course has pretty good relations with, Margaret Thatcher, contrary to what everyone thinks. He famously says she has the eyes of Caligula and the lips of Marilyn Monroe. He's a great pal of hers in the Falklands War. She handbags him in European summits and he doesn't really mind. He's got this sort of charming lounge lizard side that I think French presidents should have and actually generally do have.
But he starts off incredibly to the left, doesn't he?
Yeah, and then
he kind of nationalizes
basically
everything, and then and then he kind of gets forced into a corner by the names of Zurich.
Basically, exactly. Yeah, he has a thing called the 110 propositions. So he has a wealth tax, and he's going to increase the minimum wage. He's going to nationalize lots of things. Very kind of Benite, to use a British term, program. He comes in with that in 81, and by about 83, 84, he's abandoned that, and they had this thing called the turning towards rigor, which is actually masterminded by his finance minister, Jacques Delors, later boss of the European Commission.
Up yours, Delors.
Yeah, as the Sun. It's good to see you ventriloquizing the Sun, Tom. I think you should do that more often.
We've had gotcha, so that's the other famous headline.
So he sort of moves back towards the centre, which is quite a common thing, I think, for French presidents, that over time they start with great ambitions, whether on the right or the left, and over time they basically end up being, to survive, they become kind of technocratic.
But it's more than that, isn't it? It's also that if you are truly to be president of all the French, you have to be in the centre.
Yeah, there were lots of French
because you're playing a kind of monarchical role.
Yeah, that's fair.
So if if you're very parti pris, if you're very much of the right, very much of the left, it's harder to do that.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's fair enough. But the other thing with Mitterrand is that he conforms to all the sort of stereotypes of French presidents. So first of all, he publishes false reports about his health and does so from the very beginning, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's still, I think, not entirely clear how long he was ill for. So how long he had prostate cancer, which eventually killed him. So how long he had that for during his presidency. He also gets up to various sort of dodgy things. He wiretaps journalists. Bizarrely, Tom, did you see this? One of the people he wiretaps is the Bond girl, Carole Bouquet from For Your Eyes Only.
Why was he doing that?
I think she was going out with a journalist at the time or something.
Right.
But anyway, perhaps we should do a podcast about Bond girls who've
been wiretapped. Yeah,
to clear that up.
Yeah, but also he builds. I mean, he builds Paris.
Yes.
So the pyramid in the Louvre and what else does he do? I can't remember.
He does lots of
Musée d'Orsay. All that kind of stuff. He
does lots of stuff in Paris, but also
Jacques Lang, his culture minister.
Here's his culture minister.
Yeah.
But also there are two other things about Mitterrand that I think are entertaining. So one is the fact that he's obviously got the secret family life. So now this is absolutely extraordinary. And actually, at first you think, oh, it's actually quite a touching story. But then when you look into it, it's a really dodgy story. He has this relationship for 33 years with the Louvre's sculpture expert, a woman called Anne Pinjot, I think her name is. And you sort of think, oh, he's got this, very French behavior. He's got this other family and he's got a daughter with her and stuff. But actually, when I looked into it, they met, Tom. Did you see this? He was in his early 40s and she was 14.
So French presidents and women of a very disproportionate age. This is another theme.
Common theme. Because, get this, they met because her father played golf with him at the seaside and brought him back to the house afterwards for a drink or something and said, oh, I'd like to introduce my
14-year-old daughter.
My 14-year-old barely teenage daughter. They ended up having a 33-year relationship and having a daughter called Mazarine, who only basically emerged into the public spotlight in the 1990s when she was already in her 20s. So that side of things is...
But he had a son as well, didn't he?
Yes, I can't...
A Swedish journalist.
That's right.
He was called.
He did indeed.
Which is a very improbable name for the son of a French president.
It's a sort of very Viking name, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's like something out of the Northman.
But then there's also, Tom, Mitterrand's sort of, Mitterrand shuffling off this mortal coil. So he leaves office in 1995, but he's already basically terminally ill. And he dies on the 8th of January 1996. But before that, he has a last meal.
Yes.
Have you studied Mitterrand's last meal?
I knew about this.
So
because as you'll know, I'm very keen on conservation.
Yeah, on birds.
And not killing endangered birds.
So he has oysters and foie gras. Foie gras already, quite controversial in some quarters. And he has this great sort of French delicacy, an ortolan bunting. These birds? These endangered birds. And the way they eat them, they force feed them first. That's very French culinary behavior. Then they drown the bird in Armagnac. Yeah. I mean, they literally drown it, sort of Duke of Clarence style. And then the way you eat it is the bird is roasted. You take the bird by its head.
And you put a napkin over your head.
Right, a napkin or a towel over your own head. You eat the bird whole, crunching all the bones. Then you have to spit out all the bones underneath your towel. And this is the most tremendous...
It is apparently the most rapturous culinary experience.
Is it?
Apparently.
I think all the stuff about the bones puts me off, for one thing.
Eat an ortolan and die, which is what Mitterrand did.
Well, it is what he did.
Because that was his last meal, wasn't it?
I think the thing about putting a towel over your head, I mean, is that going to catch on? Surely not. Supposedly that's because you can't... some people claim that's because it intensifies the aroma. And others say it's because you can't, what you're doing is a sin and God can't see you doing it.
I think both of those are entirely plausible. Yeah, well, I think we've summed up the key events of Mitterrand's presidency there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Eating birds. He ate a bird soaked in Armagnac.
Hanging around with teenagers.
He had 2 illegitimate children. Yeah. I mean, and did he do anything else, Dominic? He was very he negotiated with Thatcher.
He blew up the Rainbow Warrior
and Bush. Yeah. Oh yeah, he blew up the Rainbow Warrior. But he played a key role in the end of the Cold War.
Yeah, German unification.
Yeah. And he had a moving ceremony, didn't he, with Chancellor Kohl?
They held hands.
Yeah, and stood
sweet.
In the rain together.
Yes.
It's a symbol of Franco-German amity.
Chancellor Kohl, I think, is a man who would eat a bird, but I don't think Chancellor Kohl was a man of such... Although Chancellor Kohl actually ended up in later life, as some listeners may remember, being sort of imprisoned by his...
evil nurse, didn't he?
Yeah. So...
Yeah.
It's all...
I'd rather have Mitterrand's fate, I think.
It's all... I mean, the more you do this, British politics just looks...
so tawdry.
No, I think it looks incredibly sensible by comparison. None of this...
it looks bourgeois, doesn't it?
None of this happened to John Major. I mean, he's never eaten a bird with a towel over his head.
Well, and talking of bad behaviour, the next president is none other than Jacques Chirac, who we mentioned earlier. And he's absolutely a constant, isn't he? I mean, he is there the whole way through.
Yeah.
Like a kind of bad smell.
Chirac basically got involved with politics when he was about 2 or something. And was constantly sort of plotting and being prime minister. And
so he's prime minister twice.
In the 70s, and he falls out with Giscard. And then,
so he's prime minister under Giscard, and then he's prime minister under Mitterrand. That's the first example of cohabitation, which you mentioned, where you have people from different parties, kind of once a prime minister and once a president.
Yeah,
and in between that, he was also mayor of Paris.
Well, Chirac is Chirac is too young to have been involved in the war. He's born in 1932. His father was an aircraft company executive. He was a communist, as you said, when he was young, and he went to Sciences Po. He went to ENA, so he's another énarque. He's from those elite kind of training colleges for French politicians. He worked for Pompidou. Pompidou called him the bulldozer. But I think the thing about Chirac...
In English?
Le bulldozer.
So he's le bulldozer.
Yeah. The thing about Chirac is his absolute world-class cynicism, I think, isn't it? I mean, he is an absolutely shameless grafter, completely corrupt, kind of unprincipled, but he wears that.
And the key kind of example of that opportunism is the way, he changes the constitution, doesn't he, so that the term of office will be 5 years rather than 7.
Yeah.
But also to kind of stiff the left, he makes it easier for the far right to participate in the electoral process. And the far right basically means Jean-Marie Le Pen, who we'll come to in due course. And it's under Chirac that you have the kind of the development where Jean-Marie Le Pen makes it to the second round in the 2002 election.
Yes. And so people vote for him and they say better to vote for the crook than the fascist.
Yeah, better the crook than the fascist. He, and I think everyone, had been expecting that the man who had served as his prime minister in a second experience of cohabitation, Lionel Jospin, the socialist leader, would make it through. And I always adored Jospin because he looked exactly like a baby owl. Do you remember him?
I do remember Jospin.
Adorable little. Imagine him falling out of a nest.
He looked a bit like that guy Jolyon Maugham, didn't he?
Yes, but more like an owl than Jolyon Maugham.
All right. Well, the two things about Chirac that I think are more... obviously, he opposed Iraq.
Yes, so he opposed Iraq and he was very rude about British cooking.
He said it was only Finnish cooking was worse. And I think Finnish cooking is now very fashionable. So Chirac looks a fool.
It is, yeah. Exactly.
But Chirac was colossally corrupt as mayor of Paris. He was mayor of Paris from 1977 to 1995. It was a new job. He did a bit of a kind of Boris Johnson. So he took this new job running a capital city, and he used it as a platform to advance his kind of national ambitions. But when he was running Paris, they had vote rigging, they had tons of kickbacks on public housing, lots of people had made up fictional jobs, sort of dozens of fictional jobs that actually were, he was paying money to people in his party. He spent hundreds of thousands of euros on gardening for himself and members of his own party. And he spent, would you believe, 15 million euros a year, Tom, on food, which seems, even if you're buying those birds, that's a lot of birds.
The ortolan. Well, I remember I was writing Rubicon during this period of Chirac's presidency, where lawyers were kind of sniffing around his record, and there were all kinds of talks of bringing him to trial for corruption, and basically he wanted office in 2002 because it would continue to give him immunity.
Exactly,
and that's very like Caesar in Gaul having to keep up his term of office so that he can't be brought to trial. And I remember that as a kind of a parallel that
he's a very, very high class in that side of his life. He's a very high class Silvio Berlusconi. Using sort of...
Berlusconi was the same. Yeah.
Using political office to protect himself. He also has this sort of colourful sex life. So his wife, Bernadette, he and his wife called each other vous instead of tu. To the ends of their lives.
Very formal.
Which you might think very formal, but also I think was a reflection of their slightly strained... Because she basically said after he died, I stayed with him. I didn't really want to. He treated me very badly. His chauffeur would take him on all these assignations. And I've read two different versions of this. So one is that the chauffeur would call him Mr. 15 minutes, shower included.
Yes.
And the other was that they called him Mr. 3 minutes, shower included. but either way, anyway, it wasn't flattering. And so Chirac was his most spectacular liaison was supposedly with the actress Claudia Cardinali, who was in The Leopard and Once Upon a Time. She starred with Alain Delon. Tom.
Yeah, so it all
connects.
Yeah, it all connects. But he had achievements as well.
I think actually the funny thing is Chirac, he looks like a French president. When you see him at those sort of summits.
They all do. He has that kind of French president nose that d'Estaing had, that Mitterrand had, that Chirac had.
Yeah. Chirac
and then Sarkozy, who follows him, lets the side down.
Well, Chirac hated Sarkozy because Sarkozy had backed one of his rivals in the 1990s, a guy called Edouard Balladur.
But before we get into Sarkozy, let's quickly take a break for some publicité. See you in a sec. This episode is brought to you by Rocket Money.
Tom, we often talk about how to organise our finances. I'm very conscious that I'm paying for a lot of mad subscriptions. And there's one thing that we've talked about often on this show. It's the thing that we probably hate more than any other, and it's a hidden fee. I would love to get my finances under control. There are all these things piling up on our bank statements, and I think I need to fix this problem. I need to sort this out and to stop this.
I mean, my finances are so chaotic that I need this app.
So I'll tell you what it is. It's called Rocket Money. It's a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and it helps to lower your bills so that you can grow your savings.
With Rocket Money, you can track all of your subscriptions and you can easily cancel within the app with just a few taps, saving you time, avoiding charges. And you can also set budgets and goals and get personalized insights and regular reports to track how you're doing. They will even send you real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, refunds, and even low balances. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/ishistory.
That's rocketmoney.com/ishistory. rocketmoney.com/ishistory.
This episode is brought to you by the Financial Times. I think we both agree, Dominic, that in the clamour of countless voices competing to break the news and telling you the what, the who, and the where on these stories, there's often something missing, isn't there?
There is, Tom, because I think to get a true understanding of any story, you really need to know why. Take FT journalism. It goes deeper, providing the insight, analysis, and perspective to help you see the whole story and truly understand the issues that matter. Why did it happen? Why is it important? And why will it matter? I've got a brilliant example. So they had an article recently, a fascinating article about why populism became popular. And this Financial Times article absolutely delved into that. It was so interesting.
And does it nail it?
Yeah, it nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And it really made me look at populism in a new light.
Well, if you're interested in the why, we have good news.
Yes, listeners to The Rest is History can save more than 40% on an annual digital subscription to the Financial Times by visiting ft.com/history. For the why, Financial Times.
Welcome back to The Rest is History. So, Dominic, Sarkozy succeeds Chirac in 2007.
Sarkozy is obviously a different generation. It's 1955. And actually, I think the French presidents start to become less interesting from this point because...
I think Sarko's pretty interesting.
But Sarko is a ludicrous character, isn't he?
Yes. But
I mean, he's nothing but a ludicrous and corrupt character.
So he wears platform heels.
Yeah.
He again has a kind of great marital record. Because he has 3 wives, doesn't he? Of whom the most famous is Carla Bruni.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Who's about 3 feet taller than he is.
But he was also married to a model.
Yeah.
And he married to someone else who's and one of their sons is a hip hop producer.
I saw that.
So
yeah.
It's
Sarkozy kind of made his name.
He's President Bling Bling, wasn't he?
Partly as a sort of hardline interior minister.
So when
he basically says, I think it's about 2005. He says, "I will clean up this scum. I will clean this scum off the streets with a basically a pressure hose."
Yeah. So that's in the banlieue, isn't it? And there were 3 boys, and they get kind of electrocuted in a power station or something. And
that's
then
right.
It's a whole series of riots. And Sarkozy was the Home Minister at that time.
That's right.
And he said he called them racailles, so scum.
Yeah.
And said that he wanted to apply a pressure hose to them. And so that was actually, I mean, it got him lots of blowback from the left.
But lots of votes.
But yeah. And that, of course, is, I guess, a kind of growing theme in French politics is a kind of, a hard right edge to narratives about race and particularly Islam.
Yeah, I think that's true, because Islam was not really an issue in French politics in the 1970s and 80s, even though there were lots of settlers when I say settlers, I mean there were lots of Pieds Noirs, and there were also lots of what the French would call Arabs, because that's the word that they would often use. That wasn't a theme in the 70s and 80s. It was an anti-immigration theme, but it wasn't anti-Islamist or Islamic. But that obviously became a much bigger issue from the 1990s.
Well, so Sarkozy is interior minister during the decade after 9/11.
Yeah.
And actually kind of Islamist attacks in France are probably the worst in the continent, worse in Europe. So that is kind of his forging ground. And I think the reason why you say he's a comical character is that an important part of his image is this kind of hard man, pressure hosing the banlieue, all that kind of stuff. And yet he's very small, wears platform heels, and can't quite carry it off.
Yeah, because the hard man thing is posturing, political posturing, I think. But the first thing he does such Sarkozy behavior, sort of the first thing he did when he became president was to double his own salary, which I think is exactly what you would expect. Yeah. And obviously he then is involved in the most, again, more hideous scandals, wiretapping. He's accused of taking 50 million euros from the Libyans, from the Libyan government, which, I mean, when you think that he was the great...
Well, he joins with Cameron, doesn't he?
Yeah, he was the great sort of war progenitor of the attack on
Libya.
Yeah, and I basically, with Sarkozy and then with his successor, you basically get two failed presidencies, two people who don't play the de Gaulle-ish part and who don't represent in any way the grandeur of France. I mean, Sarkozy, because his ambition, I think, is too naked, and because he is nothing but pure ambition in many ways.
And greed.
And then he is succeeded in 2012 by a man who basically, he bills himself as Mr. Normal. That's the phrase he uses. But the phrase that most people use to describe François Hollande is Monsieur Flamby. And a flamby is that's like a kind of creme caramel, like a custard pudding.
Kind of wobbles, doesn't it?
Yeah, and he's...
Although he has an excellent name.
What?
And do you know the name of his eldest son?
Tom Hollande.
Oui. Thomas Hollande. Thomas Hollande. Yeah, it's an excellent name.
But Tom, he brings the Hollande dynasty into slight disrepute, doesn't he?
No, so we point out that he has an E on the end of his name.
Right.
Because otherwise, you're right, he would bring shame on the name of Hollande.
Because he really is he's, I think, the least interesting of all French presidents, because he was an énarque, he was a special advisor to Mitterrand, spokesman for Jospin.
Well, and he's married to Ségolène Royal,
who had been beaten by Sarkozy in 2007.
Yes. Yeah. And who in a way is kind of much more interesting, dynamic figure.
Yeah.
And something we haven't mentioned up till now is that all of these presidents have been men.
Yeah.
And Ségolène Royal was supposed to, she was the one who was supposed to become president.
But Hollande, I had a look at Hollande's campaign website, Tom, from 2012. If you click on FrançoisHollande.com or .fr or whatever, do you know what it is? It's actually now a website selling air conditioning units.
Is it?
Which said it all about Hollande's, because when he became president, we talked this thing about the grandeur. He was inaugurated during this terrible rainstorm, and there are the most hilarious images of him. He looks kind of an unprepossessing bloke anyway, but he's absolutely drenched. I mean, he's standing there with this very Clouseau-like sort of sense of dignity, as though as though God is pouring a bucket of water over his head.
Kind of Monsieur Hulot.
Yeah, it is that
kind of quality.
Do you know the nadir of his approval rating in the French public?
14% or something?
No.
12%?
4%.
4%, goodness.
4%.
Well, was that because he also, I mean, considering that he's not the most prepossessing of men.
No.
I mean, he Chirac, Mitterrand, I mean, you can see there's a kind of suavity, a vulpine quality,
in the cocktail lounge of a mid-century bar.
They are like foxes in a chicken coop.
Yeah.
But Hollande, but very, very kind of spectacular. He splits up from Royal.
Yeah, she throws him out, I think, because he's been carrying on with a journalist, Valérie
Trierweiler.
Yeah.
And then he dumps on her.
He does.
With an actress, Julie Gayet.
Yeah.
And he was photographed famously, wasn't he, on a kind of little moped, wearing a very, very unprepossessing crash helmet.
But the great thing about that was that his the guy who was driving the scooter, he made him stop off to buy some croissants. I mean, just you sort of think this could be invented by some terrible 70s British sitcom.
Do you know what I'd love
writer,
to hear is an equivalent to this podcast doing the same to British prime ministers. I mean, I'm sure they'd seem equally risible, but
maybe they would. I don't know. Yeah, maybe they'd concentrate on the same really crucial issues that we've been concentrating on.
Their love life. Do we have anything to say about Hollande's policies beyond the fact that he got wet, got rained on?
No, I mean, obviously Hollande is in power in the second half of the 2010s, a pretty wretched period, I suppose you would say, for the sort of Western democratic world anyway. And pretty soon after he's inaugurated, I think the French make up their minds he's a busted flush. And of course, he has this young industry minister who he's recruited from Rothschilds, who is Emmanuel Macron. And in 2016, I think it is, so Hollande hasn't been there very long, Macron founds his own party, En Marche, with his own initials, and basically then leaves the government, and Hollande doesn't know what to make of it. But Macron, unlike Hollande, despite the fact that he's so young and frankly so strange, is brilliant at playing. He plays the grandeur of France in a way that Hollande and Sarkozy weren't capable of doing, don't you think?
Well, I do. And I think that Macron, although he immolates the Socialist Party that had been led by Hollande, and of which Macron had been a minister, he also immolates the Gaullist Party because the Gaullist candidate François Fillon gets caught up in inevitably a scandal involving his Welsh wife, Penny.
That's right.
Who had been supposedly employed as a secretary and had been paid quite a lot for secretarial services. So essentially, Macron, in a way, is the kind of the quintessence of a French president, because we're talking about the idea of the president rising above party politics in that kind of Gaullist sense. In a way, Macron is the most Gaullist president of all, because he actually destroys the party system.
Yeah.
He leaves, he has immolated the parties of the centre-right and the centre-left, so that all that is left now in French politics are the two extremes of the left and the right.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think because Macron would say, I'm above such petty distinctions. I'm above ideology. I represent France, the grandeur
and he
of
does.
France. Yeah, and I think
superbly, I think.
But Macron also has that thing of being slightly strange.
Oh, indisputably. He's another one for the kind of the weird age gap.
Well,
although it works better for him because this time it's his wife who's 24 years older, I think.
Yes, they met when he was 15, and
so that's in Amiens, isn't it?
And she at school, she was his drama teacher. She was 39, and he was and married with children. He was 15, and of course, he's all his life he's basically had to cope with people laughing at that, sneering at it, whatever. But actually, what is even more extraordinary, Tom, his best man at his wedding.
Yeah.
Did you see this?
Yeah.
His best man was born in 1924.
Yeah.
So when I worked out, his best man is 53 years his senior. Yeah. So in other words, that means that if my son does a Macron, his best man is currently 63 and he's 10.
Yeah.
That's quite hard.
But that's not going to happen, is it?
Well, I would be absolutely astounded if Arthur's future best man is more than a decade my senior. I think Macron clearly. We talked right at the beginning about de Gaulle writing that story about himself, General de Gaulle beating the Germans when he was 15, just a very sort of Churchillian thing to do. Macron clearly has that sense. There are lots of stories about him saying to people when he was at school, "Well, I'm going to be president of France. I'm going to lead France." All this kind of stuff.
I think he is the embodiment of huge numbers of the trends that we've talked about in a kind of very, very self-conscious way. So he's been most recently in the news, aside from the election, for the role that he's played in essentially keeping lines of communication open with Putin.
He wants to be the man at the end of that long table.
He does, but he also wants to situate France midway between...
Yeah, he does.
Between China, Russia, whatever, and the United States. So he said that NATO is brain dead. He's very keen on that. Yes. He's incredibly hostile to Britain. That's another kind of theme of that's a kind of Gaullist tradition, I guess. Yeah. He had a great grandfather from Bristol, who'd fought in the First World War and who then cheated on his wife and ran off. And
that's why.
That is a theory as to why he's.
But he also does that.
Anglophobic.
He also absolutely incarnates that thing that to an Anglo-Saxon viewer of treading that very fine line between being sort of impressive and being utterly ridiculous. So wearing the hoodie, the Paris hoodie in emulation.
That was very sweet. I think he's much more impressive than ridiculous.
Or posing in the last 2 days, Tom, showing off his bare chest. Have you seen this? His
hairy
but
chest? That's what the French do. What's his name?
Jean-Paul Sartre didn't do that.
Bernard-Henri Lévy does it. He's
he?
Always showing off his chest.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
At least you're not going in for like ludicrous. We absolutely haven't gone in for ludicrous national stereotypes in this podcast. That's one thing we've very much steered clear of.
I think Macron is. I think he's the most impressive current Western leader by a long, long way. I think.
Well, the competition.
I don't think it's necessarily been good for France, because I think that a healthy democratic system depends on healthy parties of the left and the right. Contesting one another. And I think that he has essentially, by annihilating that, I think he's put French democracy in quite a kind of treacherous state, quite an awkward state, But I think that as a political leader, as an embodiment of his nation, I think he's indisputably impressive. He's charismatic. His achievement in becoming president at the young age he has done.
There's a definite trend here, Tom, because you love Tony Blair as well, and they're basically...
Yeah, I think he's a very Blairite figure.
He is a very
I
Blairite
do like
figure.
these kind of charismatic.
You like kind of
charismatic centrists.
Charismatic centrists who undo too many buttons, basically. That's
yeah, maybe.
That's what you look for in a man.
Well, but don't you think he's impressive? I mean, he's more impressive than
Hollande.
Schultz or Johnson or Biden or...
Well, he's younger than Biden. That's
yeah, I mean, indisputably. I mean, Biden could be his best man.
He could. Yes, that's very true. Yeah, he could be married to Mrs. Biden and have Joe as his best man.
Yeah. But you think? I think he. I mean, I agree. It's not a. The current crop of Western leaders aren't amazing, but I think.
Well, I suppose what I think is great politicians, or very successful politicians, they have a profound consciousness of themselves being in the sort of the gaze of history and of playing a part. They walk onto stage and they're conscious that all eyes are on them and they rise to that. I mean, I always think there's an amazing clip actually of Macron, because he was very young. He was president at 39. And there's a clip of him soon after he becomes president, and he's going on a walkabout, and there's all crowds, and there's kids, teenagers, and one of them shouts at him as he walks past, "Ça va, Manu? How's it going?" And Macron stops with the cameras on him, and he goes back to this boy, and he says, basically, "I'm not Manu to you. You call me Mr. President." And I thought, in Britain, if a prime minister behaved like that, people would say, "God, the prime minister, what a terrible ass."
Well, John Prescott's the model for how to behave. In a situation like that, you punch him, particularly if he's got a mullet. We should explain that that's a reference to John Prescott, Tony Blair's deputy prime minister, who got hit by an egg.
Yeah, who punched a protester. Exactly.
But
Macron doing that, Macron has this tremendous sense of the grandeur of France, that thing that we talked about at the beginning. And I think that's... I mean, it's terrible to degenerate into national stereotypes as much as we've done. But obviously that is a key element of the French presidency, this monarchical sense.
But we said right from the beginning that is what you have to measure up to. And that by that standards, Macron, I think, is probably the most impressive president since de Gaulle. And so by the time you listen to this, you'll know whether he has obtained re-election or not. I think that even if he does, I think France is in a bit of a mess because... I imagine that Marine Le Pen will have done better than she did in the previous time that these two figures contested the election.
Last time, I think, didn't she?
And we haven't really talked about the Le Pens, but they are kind of a shadow lurking in the background because the French presidency was set up by de Gaulle, who defined himself against the Vichy tradition. Yeah. And in a way, the Le Pens embody that kind of the Vichy tradition. So there's a sense in which there is a political tradition there that is antithetical to de Gaulle and therefore perhaps to the entire idea of the presidency as it was formulated by de Gaulle.
I think that's fair because actually that goes back even earlier than Vichy, Tom, because Jean-Marie Le Pen, Marine Le Pen's father, who basically founded her party and founded her movement, even though they've fallen out with each other, he was first involved in politics with a group that was associated with a group called Action Française, which was a far-right movement, ultra-Catholic, ultra-royalist, dating from the late 19th century, that was opposed to the very idea of the Republic. And in some ways...
He's a monarchist, isn't he?
In some ways, you could say that's what the Le Pen political movement represents.
And also talking about the idea of being antithetical to what de Gaulle represents. Jean-Marie Le Pen was very, very opposed to Algeria, de Gaulle's Algerian policy.
Well, Jean-Marie Le Pen was an intelligence officer in Algeria.
Yeah.
And suppose, there were rumors involved with torture or whatever, so many people were. So, there is a sort of... People forget that before the Second World War, French politics had been incredibly conflicted. The very existence of the Republic had been up for debate. There had been talk of civil war in the 1930s. And those kind of ruptures, obviously they're very different now. But the sort of... I don't know, I'm mixing my metaphors terribly, but the kind of aftershocks of all that, the reverberations of it, they're still there to this day. And the Le Pen movement, it's not just, it's the left behind, people across about immigration or globalization or whatever. It has deeper roots, I think, that go back
absolutely.
To sort of late 19th century, early 20th century France, the Dreyfus case and all this kind of stuff.
Yes, and of course, someone who we haven't mentioned who definitely won't become president because he's been knocked out is Eric Zemmour, who, I mean, even though he's Jewish, has kind of chunted a little bit about whether Dreyfus was actually innocent. And has,
extraordinary.
And has kind of chunted about whether Vichy was really as bad as people have said. And Marine Le Pen, I mean, we should say, she has adopted a policy of trying to clear things up. So she has fallen out with her father. She's expelled him from the from the party. They've renamed the Front National, the National Front. I can't remember what she calls it now, but changed the name.
National Rally, I think it is.
Something like that. And she's always posing with her cats, isn't she? She's a Persian cat breeder.
Is she? Ali Ansari would be impressed by that behavior.
Yes. So she has, tried to tidy things up. And I guess you could, I mean, of course, the other thing is that, again, seems very, very striking, actually looking the whole way back over these presidents, is how very, very right-wing France is.
Yeah.
And we tend not to think of France as being right-wing, I suppose, because of the revolution.
Yeah.
But, the vast majority of these presidents have been on the right, all of them, except for Mitterrand and Hollande. Macron, I mean, he's clearly veered to the right, I think,
definitely,
drifted to the right.
Yes.
You could say about Le Pen, although she's described as far right, her policies, her economic policies, her social policies are very, very left wing.
Well,
I mean, much more left wing than
they're protectionist.
They're protectionist. And since that is the intriguing element in this election, is that Mélenchon, who's the kind of the French Corbyn, picked up. He came third, just behind Marine Le Pen. Where will his votes go? Because it's not immediately obvious that Macron would be more appealing to them.
I think it's
kind of a globalist liberal.
It's a very good point you make, Tom, about French politics, and I think people often get that wrong, particularly in Britain, because in Britain, where France is kind of the other, I think particularly people on the liberal left have a fantasy image of France. They think it's all kind of sipping rosé wine in leafy gardens and wearing polo necks and talking about existentialism. But in reality, I mean, I can remember very vividly, just to end on a kind of note of utter self-indulgence. When I was a language assistant in France in the mid-1990s, I remember once it was 1995 or 6, so there were the Le Pen sort of bandwagon was really underway, but also the arguments about Islam were really sort of kicking off. And I can remember at one point very foolishly thinking this would be a good idea to have a conversation about this with my kind of 17, 18-year-old students. And they lived in a affluent sort of town in the south of France. I assumed utterly naively that they would think just like I did and my contemporaries in England, because obviously I didn't know anybody in England who was on the kind of far right. And I mentioned Le Pen in this sort of dismissive way, or gosh, isn't it shocking that Jean-Marie Le Pen gets so much support? And I couldn't believe how many of these, trendy, good-looking 17, 18-year-olds, not at all left behind kind of people, thought Le Pen was tremendous. And actually the first thing they generally said was, well, he'll clear up all the Arabs.
They said that to you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Without the slightest sense of shame, or in a way that I don't think a similar group of people in England
or Scotland, by and large, the sense in England and Scotland is that people under the age, say, of 25 will identify with Jeremy Corbyn or with Nicola Sturgeon and see them as kind of progressive.
By the
radicals.
way, if you're Welsh, we haven't forgotten you.
Yes, I don't know how. Yeah, I guess, I mean, young Welsh voters likewise would vote for Labour, I guess. They'd be anti-Tory. They'd be anti-Tory.
The assumption that young people are more liberal, which doesn't work in France.
I gather that the overwhelming majority of under 25s in France are voting Le Pen.
Well,
which does seem unusual.
We shall see if that happens. But historically, Tom, the Front National has done well with young voters. And that sort of turns on its head what Anglo-Saxons,
it's not the Front National anymore, is it? We should
No, it's okay. It's not the Front National, but it's basically the same. Right.
Or is it? I mean, I don't know what you think about that. So there is debate about that.
Yeah.
About how much it's changed.
Okay. No,
to
that's
what
fair enough.
extent Le Pen fee would be. I mean, she's definitely a different order of politician to her father, who was an incredibly sinister figure.
But the lineage, you can't deny the lineage.
I do, yeah.
Yes. Well, maybe she's president now, and we're talking about the new president of France, but I don't think she will be. So,
but that also is a kind of interest. Just to return to something I mentioned earlier, how masculine the French presidency has always been.
Yeah, very true.
So contrast there. Could I just also mention one other intriguing detail about the French president?
Go on.
He is also the co-prince of Andorra.
Yes, he is. So that's a great thing, isn't it?
Again, it kind of unsettles our sense of.
I think the French republicanism. I think he should make more of that. I would make more of that if I was. Well,
Macron does. I think Macron is quite keen on the whole.
Yeah.
Co-prince of Andorra.
And I imagine, Sarkozy looks like the Prince of Andorra.
Yes, he does. He does.
Well, he's at home with the tag, Sarkozy. You seen this? He's because he's got a suspended sentence for corruption, so he's got permission to spend it at home with a electronic tag.
Carla.
With Carla,
yeah, and Carla, and Chirac had a suspended sentence as well.
It's basically comes with the massive salary.
Yeah. Anyway, on that note,
this has been incredibly
fair,
nuanced,
reasonable, balanced,
portrait
and not
of
in
French.
any way Anglo-Saxon take on the French presidency. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it complements whatever the result of the election is. And we will see you soon.
Okay.
Au revoir.
Au revoir. À la prochaine.
Thanks for listening to The Rest is History. For bonus episodes, early access, ad-free listening, and access to our chat community, please sign up at restishistorypod.com. That's restishistorypod.com.